Awesome. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining. I hope I'm audible and visible for all of you. As discussed yesterday and on the group, this is an Ask Me Anything session, and for that we have Miss Avni. Avni has a very unique professional worldview in management consulting because she has worked with multiple organizations. She's right now working with EY Parthenon as as an associate vice president. Previously, she has worked with Accenture as a consultant, I believe PwC as well, and she has also worked with Deloitte prior to her MBA. So, any questions that we have for her with respect to her experience, her interviews, what she looks for while hiring candidates, you can just raise your hands. Just one request, make sure that the questions are not super personal because it's good to keep the questions a little generic because only then they'll be able to add value for all of us, right? So since all of us are short on time, we know we have our next session with Devang on CV making at 6 p.m. IST. So we'll put a hard stop to this session at 5:45 p.m. so that you can get some breather before you join for the next session. So you can raise your hands and I'll unmute you. Please make sure that you ask a question which will add value for all of us.
Yeah, I think I'll just take a moment again to explain my
Sure.
work experience, right?
Sure.
So, pre-MBA, I worked in Deloitte as a as a technology analyst. So, I was in a technology consulting firm, but for an internal service, right, for tax. Post MBA, I worked with Accenture in their CFO EV division, which essentially talks about financial office transformation. So, all the tools that they use on a day-to-day finance monitoring processes, we were trying to automate them and trying to consult them as to how to make it more smoother. After that, I moved into a more strategy consulting sort of a role with PwC. So I entered their deal strategy team, which is mainly M&As, CDDs, and other strategy engagements. Post that, right now I'm with EY Parthenon, again doing a similar line of work, which is mostly CDDs, commercial due diligences, strategies, and another, acquisition consulting.
Got it. Any questions, anyone? You can raise your hands. Okay, Abhishek, over to you. And please try to come on camera when you're asking the question. Would be really helpful. Abhishek, over to you.
Yeah, hi Oni. Nice to
Hi.
meet you. Yeah, so basically, I wanted to ask about the question about your first job experience as a consultant, that like how it was looking like. So when you first joined to a consulting firm, then what were your expectations and what are the challenges that you have faced there that I wanted to know?
Great question, and it really depends upon what type of consulting you start your career with, right? So if you're starting your career with something that is very front or market oriented, right, then you should expect a lot of number crunching, right? You need to be really on top of a business sense, right, of the client that you're working with. For example, say right now if I'm working with alcobev manufacturer, I need to understand how that business works, right? So that sort of a mindset is something that is really required in a front facing consulting role. But say something like a technology consulting role, then you should expect having to get up to date with a lot of functional expertise, right? So these are two different sort of roles which I've noticed at least.
Okay, so basically, that means have you got trained upon that in the company?
Of course, of course. So, especially when you join a functional consulting role, they give you training. First few projects, you are expected to work with like when I joined Accenture, it was as a management consulting analyst. So I used to have a manager above me who used to help me out. He used to tell me about, other projects that they've done, how they've built the expertise in that. That helped me build expertise in the project that I was doing. But when it comes to a market ended role, expect on the job learning, but don't expect a lot of hand holding. Okay, because these are things like, again, as I said, it's a lot more business oriented, right? So these are some things that people expect you to know at least at a basic or medium level, especially about how a P&L of a company operates, some financial metrics, all of these. So don't expect hand holding on those lines, maybe, but yeah,
Okay.
in
And
technology consulting, definitely.
yes, yes, thank you so much. And one last question, like, have you learned anything apart from the consulting, like the Excel sheets or any like anything, like any tools or whatever it is that is currently helping you?
So Excel and PPT are bread and butter for consultants, right? So Excel, there are multiple. Yeah, I would, there are multiple aspects to excelling Excel, right? One
Mm.
is, your basic formulas, right? Second is you get into the all the complex formulas. The third and the most important thing is actually doing the right analysis and actually presenting it in the right format, right?
Right.
So that's a different line of expertise that you develop in consulting. If it comes to things like using tools like Power BI, etc., I would say I have used them, but yes, definitely somebody who uses it has an upper hand over his colleagues. But I would say more than all of that, it's about how you process that information.
Okay.
Hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Interesting. Anybody else? You can raise your hand and ask your question directly. Okay, Suchi had a question in the chat. I'll just speak it out.
There's
Uh,
part who's
yeah,
has his as well.
sure. Suchi, I'll just take your question and then we'll come to Parth. Suchi asked in chat that um, if we are trying to pivot to a domain-specific consulting role, be it healthcare consulting or M&A or financial services, is it possible to pivot to that role if we don't come from that background?
So again, it's a very vague sort of a question. So see, there are two different type of things. If you're entering a industry specific role, like for example, how you
Hmm.
said healthcare consulting, right?
Hmm.
Up till a certain level, yes, you can join without prior experience. I know people who have joined, say, with technology experience into something like a ZS Associates, or
Hmm.
there is another firm, I think Advancy Consulting or something like that, right? At a junior level, up till say maybe senior associate consultant, completely fine. But don't
Hmm.
expect after that you will be able to pivot to a different industry role,
Very true.
because your colleagues that you'll be working with, they would have significantly higher experience.
Hmm.
uh, so it wouldn't make much sense.
Very
Okay,
true.
but
And
when it comes to things like M&A, right? So
hmm.
I work in M&A consulting. I have seen people with, say, industry experience that have come into M&A and have done really well, right? So
Hmm.
that sort of a pivot does happen.
Hmm.
But as you get more functional into it, don't expect a lot of opportunities higher up.
Got it. That's why, if you have more experience in a certain domain, it's good to make a consulting pivot in that domain itself in terms of domain specific consulting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, aim for generalist openings.
Yeah. Again, so I'm assuming that everybody here would be, say, less than 3 years of work experience,
It's
right?
a mixed
So,
batch.
sorry?
It's a mixed batch. Broadly, 3 to 10 is the typical range.
Okay, okay. But yeah, again, in industry roles, I have seen people join in from, have
Hmm.
switch industries as well, right? When it comes to something like a strategic manager, etc. But obviously, it's going to be a challenge if you come from a if you say are moving from, say, a consumer industry to a healthcare industry at a
Hmm.
senior manager level.
Very true. Got it. Parth had a question. Parth, go ahead.
Hi, Avani. Hi, Sarthak. So, part of my question has already been answered because my question also revolved on the first two question, which you have just answered. But I just wanted to check, like, right now, when I see a lot of JDs of the openings at the Big Four or the MBBs and all, especially in the generalist role, they do not mention any specific skill set which they are looking for, or any tangible skill set for that matter. But still, like, is there any requirement as far as those skills are concerned? Number one, and number two is like, for example, right now I come from a secondary market research background, primarily focusing on VC and PE sector. So, from there switching into a generalist management consulting role, like do I need anything special to do to enter into that? So I just wanted to have
Got it.
opinion on that.
So you're saying something like a Gartner. You're moving from something like a Gartner to a management consulting firm. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Gartner specifically for PE and VC.
Yeah. So coming to the skill set that usually strategy consulting firms look for, right? And I'll go about it like at a starting level and say
Mm.
after at a manager level, etc. Right?
Mm.
First at a starting level, what I believe is that you are expected to know how to solve problems or have a very structured thinking as to how you solve a problem. That's first, and you should be able to layer that with how a business works. Okay, and so I'm coming from an experience where the first case that I really had to do was, yes, during my MBA, but really after that, from switching from Accenture to PwC, I remember that I had to solve a case within a minute for my PwC interview, right? I was not able to. But what I was able to do is, for example, walk them through what my thinking is, how I would solve it, right? And that still made a really big impact and I still got the job, right? So
Mm.
it's really important that you're articulate about how you want to solve a problem. And always, if I at the end of the day, strategy consulting is really about how do you run a business, right? So you really need to have a deep business sense into it. That really helps you solve cases easier and all of that as well. These are in general the top, bird's eye view of what people look for. But really on ground, if things that they can't test in an interview but they expect you to be really good at is basic maths, right? Research, or rather that go getter attitude, as in you go into that depth and try to figure things out.
Got it.
Thanks.
And yeah, so coming from a research oriented firm to a strategy oriented firm, I actually have a lot of colleagues who have done that pivot. Because in a research oriented firm, especially if you're in the PEVC space, you would be knowing a lot about the financial characteristics of companies, and you would know a lot about market trends, which is something that is very valuable for strategy consulting firms.
Thank you.
Got it. Awesome. Suchi had a question. Suchi, go ahead.
Hi, Sarthak. Hi, Avani. Thank you. Sorry, I could not just open my camera
Sure,
right
sure, no
now.
worries.
That kind of environment. So, my question actually was a bit different than it got actually
Mm.
converted. So, most of the openings that I have been seeing are from the specific teams, from, as I mentioned, that
Mm.
sometimes they are looking for people who have experience in healthcare management, some people who have experience in M&A. So
True.
my question was actually like this. So, but what about if someone do not have that kind of experience, but they still want to go into consulting? And nowadays, not seeing,
Mm.
I'm not seeing any other openings which are like general consultant. So, how do
Mm.
one approach that?
See,
Got it.
so
And it's a very apt question, actually. And it's
mm.
something that I faced as well when I was
Mm.
trying to switch from Accenture, which was more of a technology consulting firm, into something more of a strategy consulting firm. This is
Mm.
where PwC really played a big role. And PwC and Deloitte, both of them have such teams right now. So it is something called, it's called a deal strategy team. And while I was over there, I've also worked with strategy and in between, right? But essentially, what they do is it's a generalist sort of a role where you're working half the time on CDDs, which are nothing but market assessments, company assessments, etc. And half the time you're working on strategy engagements as well. So it was a very good what do you call experience to as a beginner in strategy consulting. Okay, a similar team exists in Deloitte, but I think recently that team has been merged into Monitor Deloitte, right? So you
Mm.
can look for some openings in PwC deal strategy if there are any.
Mm. So
Now, Avni, one more follow-up question. So I
mm.
do not have any experience in that. I'm just started working as a strategy consultant in a market research firm.
Mm.
So my experience is actually industry agnostic. Sorry, I do
Mm.
not want to pivot this conversation toward my experience,
Mm.
but still,
No,
uh,
no, see, that makes sense, and only if you give me that context will I be
Mm.
really be able to help you. But again, right? So, keeping that in mind as well, I think ideally, if you had to go into say an MBB firm, Yes, it would, they don't really look for industry experience. They look for your academic experience, and they look for your work experience, achievements, etc. But of course, the threshold is very high. The acceptance rate is very low. As a parallel to that, if you want to get into a strategy consulting firm, there are very few big fours or very few teams that exist like this in strategy consulting that remain industry agnostic, that give you, different industries experience, at the same time give you exposure to strategy consulting, and deal strategy is one of them.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
And she mentioned all these firms, which is exactly true, which is Monitor Deloitte is the strategy consulting arm of Deloitte. Similarly, PwC Strategy and is the strategy consulting unit of PwC. So all these firms, specifically in Big Four, are a little more receptive to your work ex. Even if you come from a certain kind of background, which is research, or let's say marketing operations, you can get into these firms, get a foot in the door with respect to strategy consulting, and then make a pivot to, let's say, a BCG or a McKinsey. That's much better, or and that's much more plausible. Uh, any other question, anyone, before I come to Abhishek again? I was expecting you to ask some, spicy questions on her work life at EY or PwC, or how many of her weekends were protected in a real sense when she was working with Accenture. So you can ask those questions as well if she's comfortable in answering. Okay, Rucha had a question.
Um,
Yeah.
Hello, Avani.
Yeah.
It's great to meet you, first of all. So, I'm Richa, and I'm currently like working at a startup consulting firm. So, I have like 1.5 years of work ex, and I want to pivot myself into a consulting. I want to land myself at a consulting role that is a, a good consulting company and not a startup consulting firm. So,
Mhm.
well, I want to apply at these major firms and all. I want to understand like what really differentiates between the candidates that get selected versus rejected. Like
Hmm.
what is the things that we should be ready to face for when we want to enter this real life?
Good
Yeah.
question.
Sorry, you said which firms are you applying for?
I want to apply for the big fours and the other consulting firms like Arthur D. Little, Oliver Wyman, not
Hmm.
the MBBs that I'm targeting right now, but a little better company than than the one that I'm working at right now.
Hmm. So, in my experience, okay, something that really differentiates a candidate is the clarity with which you're able to answer the questions, right? That is paramount. As in, you were once say, for example, anybody asks you, and see, I will skip past the, area which is about, general questions like about you, about your personal and professional life, etc. Because those are a given, you should be able to answer them well, right? If I move into something more, if they ask you something about, something about a case, or a bit more nuanced question about your work, etc., the articulation with which you answer, the structured way that you think about any single problem given to you is really a differentiator among candidates that I've seen. Again, they don't expect you to come to the answer, right? Just a methodology of thinking. And even if you don't get to the answer, having that confidence to not stutter, and or rather not just get defeated in the middle of an interview, really takes things forward a lot.
Hmm. Got it. I hope that answers your question, Rucha. Ayushi had a question. Ayushi, go ahead.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Avni. Actually, I'm a dentist by profession, and then I did my MBA. So, like, I followed one of my seniors only, and he's in EY Parthenon right now, Dr. Sahil Gupta. I don't know if you know him. He's into healthcare in EYP. So, yeah, I also wanted to like pursue this kind of career, but I was not getting those opportunities after MBA. So I did my resident doctor program after that, and right now I am in some US company in which I'm into digital dentistry. operations there. So I wanted to know how I can crack these consulting cases as a dentist and in such company like EYP, where I can see my senior also doing really well there.
Yeah.
So please help me.
Healthcare practice. So in EY Parthenon, so is a more is sectorally divided. There is a
Mhm.
consumer sector practice, there's a healthcare practice, there's a new energy practice, etc. And yes, healthcare in EYP is one of the most healthcare and consumer are the two most growing teams
Mhm.
of EY Parthenon, right? And I have actually I know multiple people in the healthcare business who have similar to you say come from a healthcare background
Mhm.
or rather they are doctors or actually have done their PhDs or gone towards
Right.
a more academic side and then have come back as well, right?
Mhm.
What I noticed about them is that they did do a little bit of work in trying to
Mhm.
develop a a business sense or rather develop some on ground experience, right? Whatever what I've
Mhm.
noticed with them, or they've started with the firm much earlier, as in they've started at an associate or a senior associate role, right? I'm not sure the amount of work experience that you have, right?
Mhm.
But what you can do is continue building that work experience as you go and keep in touch with whoever is in the healthcare division, so you can actively reach out to them and ask for ask for referrals, etc. Always keep pinging them, asking them, is there an opening, etc. Because you never know, the hiring that happens in these teams is quite ad hoc. It doesn't happen at one period of time.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, my work experience actually very diverse, like from clinical practice to like yeah, now right now I'm in corporate, but not exactly into consulting kind of work. So that's why should I like do some extra things to improve my resume for the getting into
Sorry,
these
I didn't get you. So, you told me that you have a
yeah.
dentistry
Yeah,
degree.
yeah, I have done BDS and then MBA also I have done. But my
Okay.
experience is more from like from a government hospitals in research based only, like creating vaccines and all such kind of things. And now I want to
Hmm.
go into consulting completely as healthcare consultant, as my senior is there. So what extra I have to do to get selected there? Like my resumes get selected there. Like
Hmm.
I don't know the path actually. Ki
Yeah,
how I
so I'll give you an example that we're working on a project with the healthcare team. Okay, so it'll give you an
Mhm,
idea about the type of experience that they're looking for, right?
mhm.
So we're working with a nutraceutical company
Okay.
that plans to sell a particular ingredient in the US. Okay, particular patented ingredient in the US.
Mhm,
Okay, and now how the healthcare team is able to really add value over here is that one, they know how it works, right? And
mhm,
then they know how the market over there works, right? How, like, how is the distribution, etc., done for a healthcare product. And they know how
mhm,
the margins look, how the business of it works, right? Again, okay, so if
mhm,
you can either project your experience to make it look like that, or you get some experience on the side, you do some courses, or you
mhm.
maybe take up some I wouldn't say,
Yeah,
I'm
like
not sure
right
what
now
would
I'm like publishing papers. I'm like writing my names in patents as well. So I'm trying to do these things. I hope this also works when a resume gets
It,
selected.
it would it would, I think, to a certain extent, because they definitely look for people with industry experience that helps them really develop a point of view in a project, right? So you
Mhm,
coming from a healthcare background will be able to give them that point of view. But then again, only that is not sufficient. You would need to build on it, and you would need to get some again, business sense of thinking
yeah,
into business sense of experience into that. But again,
mhm,
I think this particular thing, you said you have your senior who's working over there. I think you
mhm,
should definitely consult him again. You show him your CV, or tell him about your work experience in detail, and ask him that,
mhm,
on a day-to-day job, what is it extra that I need to do, to crack this role. And
thank
especially
you.
because you have an in the company, as in if he's your senior, again, you should definitely keep in touch to help your chances get in.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And one second. Hmm. Varun had a question.
Hi, Avani. Good evening. Hi, Startup.
Yeah.
So my question is, like, if someone is having an experience of the Big Four and is
Your
trying
voice is a
to,
little low, Varun. Is it just
okay,
me?
yeah. So, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, like, if someone is having a decent experience working in Big Fours and want to make a shift towards MBBs, like, does and like I have no experience of strategic consulting and all. My whole experience is related to business consulting, risk consulting, and all. So does my experience with the Big Four matter if I try to apply in the MBB or not? Like, will that be looked into it uh, as a plus point, or will that be a neutral for me? Like my total work ex, like including my experience in Big Four is around 8 to 9 years.
Okay. So again, see for you and specifically if you could tell me which company and which team do you work for?
I work for EY GDS, and
Okay.
the team is basically business consulting.
Okay, got it. So
Yeah.
essentially you're working with the US team for for their consulting projects. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So see, I ideally, and you said you have 8, 9 years of work experience, right? So if you want to move to MBB at this point in time, okay, and I would assume that you would, you like, in the 8, 9 years you spent at EY.
I think he's gone on mute. Yeah, Paran.
No, my work ex with EY is around 3 years.
Okay. So, see, again, even me with strategic consulting experience, I'll be very honest, right? For me to apply and get into Bain, I know that only the private equity group is open for me. Okay. And McKinsey till date, I've not seen an opening since. I mean, I've faced difficulty rather, or I've even also I've not tried enough. But it's not as easy going on application. BCG, yes, it's open. Okay, but these are all strategic consulting firms, and again, at 8 years of work experience, getting into a strategy consulting role at an MBB is relatively difficult. Okay, but what is not difficult, because you have worked in consulting and you really know the day-to-day operations and what are the needs of helping a consulting project work, right? Because that's what is a core, responsibility of GDS. You can definitely apply for a BCN. Okay, that is one option. Another great option, and BCN is quite good, and the work-life balance, or rather the exposure that you get in BCN, is relatively really, really good versus say EY, GDS, etc. That's first option. Another a great option is actually LEK. A similar capability network that is really upcoming these days and has really good, set of people working in it, really good perks as well for the job. But
Okay.
directly
Okay.
moving into a strategy consulting role, front end is going to be very difficult.
So you mentioned BCN and
LEK.
LEK.
LEK, LEK, huh?
LEK. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. One second. Manav had a question.
Hey, hi Sarthak, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question was that what were the challenges did you face from shifting from tech consulting to general management consulting? And how did you change your mindset? Because it is difficult from changing mindset from tech to strategy because tech is all about implementations and doing everything. So how
Hmm.
did you did that?
So I'll be again very honest. I've done my bachelor's in computer science, but I've never been a tech person. My first job was technology consulting. I've never been a tech person. And unfortunately, that tech consulting job was in tax domain. And after MBA, I worked in tax technology consulting, two of the things that I did not know about, right? But really, throughout each of these jobs, what I really carried core with me is that whatever I'm doing, I would try to solve a problem, right? So that is a mindset that
Okay.
I use to apply to strategy consulting firms and try to solve any other problems that I saw, right? And that was it at the end of the day that really helped me move from, say, Accenture. And the real pivot to a business consulting role or a strategy consulting role had been from Accenture to PwC. And
Mm.
that was the only sort of, I wouldn't say shift in mindset, I would just say, exaggerating that part of mindset, saying that, okay, all I'm doing is solving a problem and not letting it get to my head that, oh, I've not done this before, is something that helped me.
Got it. Manav, I hope that answers your question. Shashanka had a question. Go ahead.
Also, one additional thing I would like to say, Manav, is that I was so I think it's a big I mean, I wouldn't say big mistake, but I would say it's a big consideration for a lot of people who have done their MBA, that my next job salary should be higher than my previous job salary, right? So I always believe that a growth mindset always works in the long term versus, say, a salary hike sort of a mindset, and that really, kept my options open for me. I had to take a slight pay cut to move from Accenture to PwC, but that really worked out for me in the long term. So that's
Mhm.
also an additional thing that if somebody here has done their MBA and wants to move into a strategy consulting role, should consider.
Very interesting. I think shifting from Accenture to EYP would have been difficult. So working with PwC in the
Yeah.
middle would have helped you a lot.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't know that, so for me, PwC was a entry into the
Mhm.
world of this M&A consulting, which actually is a very close-knit group all over India, right? So
Mhm.
everybody knows each other. So from me to move, and the lateral hires within this industry are very easy. That gives you a job opening in multiple firms.
Hmm. Got it. Yeah, Shashanka, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Avani. Good evening. Shashanka this side. So, Avani, I have a question with respect to the interviews. I have an 8+ years of experience in market research firm. I'm currently working as an assistant manager in healthcare domain. So, I wanted to understand, other than case interviews or guess estimates, for a senior role, what questions should I expect in an interview for which I can prepare, from now on?
Got it. So I think you can definitely expect, industry related questions. Okay, especially the domain that you're talking about. Within healthcare, also there would be things that you would have an expertise in, a sort of a niche,
Yes.
and or you would have projects you have worked in. I think they would expect you to have deep knowledge of that. That is something that you can expect questions in. Even your case could be based off that as
True.
well.
Very true.
Uh, Again, I think one more, and you said you are moving from industry to consulting, right?
Yes,
I
market
think,
research firm. Yeah.
yeah. So I think one question that I've seen people have been asked, industry to consulting, is that, what do you think you're going to bring to the consulting table from the real world experience?
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
senior folks in our cohort can expect behavioral questions, which we'll prepare for, plus case interviews or guesstimates, which are related to their prior sectoral expertise. Because you have had so much experience in that specific domain,
Yeah.
your case might be related to the industry that you're coming from.
Okay. So I have one more question with respect to my CV. I
Sure.
have applied before, for BCG and Accenture, but unfortunately couldn't get through. So I never understood what exactly, my CV was lacking. And so, would there be any points that you would like to suggest what should be there in CV? I know Sarthak is going to take care of that from
Hmm.
Monday onward, but if I just have to take your perspective.
I mean, what helps us stand out? What helps a CV
Yeah.
make the cut as compared to those which
Yeah.
don't?
So, and you applied to them when, like recently, or when was this?
It was, you can say 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay, got it. And you would have applied for which position?
I applied for generalist role. It was
Generalist role at which position?
Job
um,
title.
s- senior consultant. It was, I don't remember exactly. I'm mixing either I had applied in LEK and BCG. So it was a generalist role in healthcare domain, only life sciences.
Huh.
And for one company, it was something senior consultant.
Got it. And you applied directly through a referral, or would you have applied
Through
through?
LinkedIn. Through
Through
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, Shanka, I think I really would have to see your CV to comment
Mhm.
further, because I don't,
Yeah.
because it's such a unique thing that, I can't generalize and give a statement. But
True.
see, I don't think, sometimes what happens is that for a senior position, they only accept through referrals. Okay.
Mhm.
All
From
right.
the industry or anywhere. So that could have been. But since if you're saying if you applied for a senior associate, again, I can't be sure. Would have to look at your CV only, then would I be able to answer that? Sorry.
All right. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Got it. Avni, just one follow-up question from her question. What are some strict no-nos when it comes to a consulting CV, which is, you will spot that thing in a consulting CV and you will straight away reject it.
Yeah, I so a few things. So something that is not very big, if you try to make a big deal out of it, it's very easy to catch through. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
again, but this is very different from positioning something that you've done
Mm-hmm.
in a more strategic oriented way. Like for example, again, I worked in Deloitte as a business technology analyst. It was an internal technology consulting team, but I was able to prove or put it out in a way that there is some business sense that is coming out of it. What is the business case for what I do, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
are they paying me money at the end of the day, right? But that is one thing. But at the same time, I've seen people who have talked about, say, there is in every strategy consulting project almost there is a market sizing piece. If you take
Mm-hmm.
5 lines to talk about a market sizing piece that you've done, they know that that might have been only the only market sizing that you've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one big no-no, I would say. Be really careful about what you are giving space to, what you are um, how you are putting it out. That is one main thing for me. Second, again, depending upon your work experience, the what you give the most amount of space to in your resume is what they are going to focus on, and they are going to know that okay, this is the best part about that person.
True.
Sometimes involuntarily, because you worked say 5 years at a particular firm, you let that take up too much of your space. But be very very mindful. What is they need to read what is the most important part of your work ex.
Got it.
And third thing, sometimes it's not very clear what they have done in a particular firm, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I always would suggest, anybody that I talk to, that just write a short description, one line description as to what did you do, what did the firm do,
Very
right?
true. Very true. And that's even more important when the firm, let's say, is a startup or a
Yeah,
family-owned business, or if it's not
yeah,
globally or, universally known.
yep.
Company description always helps, followed by what you did in a summary format. All of that we'll discuss.
Yeah, because
Um,
say like sometimes people are called associate, but associate in that team is actually senior consultant, right?
mm,
So it's very difficult to standardize the job titles across the industries. You have to tell them what you did.
true. Got it. Understood. Monica had a question. Monica, go ahead.
Hi, Avni. So my question is around working with EY only. So I'm already working with EY GDS, and if
Mhm.
I wish to pivot into consulting, uh, would it give me an edge for the interview or getting my CV shortlisted?
So you're saying within EY GDS, you want to say pivot to EY
Partner.
Parthenon role.
Yeah.
Okay. So see, okay, one good thing about EY, and it's a recent development, EYP, is that they have merged their business consulting teams into their strategy consulting teams. Okay, so it's a
Mm-hmm.
very wide spectrum of work that they do. But what you need to really do is get a buy-in from your partner, right? You need to speak to your partner about it. So tell them that I want to look out for such opportunities. First,
Mhm.
try to do some projects with the EYP business consulting team. Once you do 1 to 2 projects and then you like it, and then you are able to get some buy-in from the business consulting team, then you can talk to them about the shift change. So it's not like a signing of paper and you're shifted. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
say it happens like that. It happens in a more gradual sort of sense.
So
But it's
like,
a good option that people
yeah,
have taken in
just
the
like you
past.
said that just work on the projects. So are these projects regularly circulated to like different teams or within EY?
No,
So
no.
that
So that's why I'm saying you should speak to your partner about it, or speak to your partner about it that I have this interest. I want to try out a different type of work within the firm, right? And that is when people are more receptive to it as well, right? People are not going to stop you in EY if you want to try out a new industry or a new line of work, etc. So you should try that.
right. Okay, thank
And
you.
you can
Mm-hmm.
reach out to some of so again I think you will keep getting emails etc, and you will be able to see people and their organization structure etc. It will be easy for you to know partners in other teams as well, so you can directly also reach out to partners in business consulting team and speak to them
Mm-hmm.
and ask for opportunities as well. But then again, it won't sit well unless you speak to your partner first.
Right, right, right. Got it. Got your point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, Shashanka had a question. A lot of people say that in consulting, there is an ATS which is used to uh, quickly scan CVs and shortlist them. So is it true that consulting firms use ATS or an algo, or is it still humanized intervention and it depends on how well your CV is crafted?
I can't generalize for all consulting firms, but I know for PwC, Accenture, and EYP that we definitely go through the CVs. It's not
Mhm.
automated.
It's humanized intervention at the end of the
Yes,
day.
yes.
Got it. Got it. And Rucha had a question, which is as a consultant, once you get into the firm, what really differentiates somebody who, let's say, gets the fastest promotions or the biggest bonuses compared to someone who's, let's say, average?
Good question. I would say the first and foremost, see, again, till interview stage, yes, it's about business solving. Okay, once you get into the firm, it's all about sense of ownership, right?
Mhm.
It's all about how you take that problem to be your own. Don't limit yourself to say, okay, I'm just a senior associate. I will do what my manager tells me. I'm just a manager. I'll do what my senior manager tells me. Always really try to solve a problem, take ownership of a problem and solve it, right? That really differentiated the people who I've seen go the length, become even a partner level candidate.
Got it. And Avni, if you were coming from a non-MBA background today and you were looking to pivot to a consulting role, how would you chart that or carve out that path for yourself?
From a non-consulting role to a consulting role.
Or a
Okay.
non-MBA
No,
working professional?
non-MBA as well. Okay, so I think I would first of all, and I did try to do it. That's why I can talk about it. That pre-MBA, I tried to pivot into a strategy consulting role. There, I would say that your best bet would be boutique consulting firms. Okay,
Mhm.
and there are really good ones as well that are developing a niche, and Big Four
Okay.
consulting firms. And benefit of boutique consulting firms over Big Four consulting firms is that you get to take that or you get to develop that sense of ownership at a very young age. I see my colleagues, some of them that have come from places like Indus Insights, which is an analytics consulting firm, but there's quite a bit of strategy as well that they do from Praxis, right? All these firms are really good. They've churned out some really great talent, right? So, as a non-MBA person trying to get into strategy consulting, first I would say focus on these set of companies, right? At least for 1 2 years, and then again you can pivot from there, etc. And to get into these firms as well, they ask for a case interview round. They ask for analytic um, aptitude sort of round. Analytic aptitude, I don't think if you are good at maths it'll be a problem. Case study is where which is a face to face interaction, people get stuck. Again, for that, doing well in case interviews and having a business sense when you're doing your case interviews really helps. So that's a whole topic altogether. But yeah, boutique consulting firms and Big Four openings.
Got it. Last two questions go to Surya. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, Avani, it's nice conversating you. So my question is regarding the job postings. I mean, I can see job postings from the MBB clearly. The way of stating the JDs as well. So when it comes to the big four and even essential strategy, I'm not able to see the job postings for the freshers who want to enter into management consulting. So where to
um
find the job postings for the freshers?
so freshers from an MBA or undergrad, sorry.
Yeah, for undergraduate.
Okay, so Accenture does not take into people after undergrad, mostly. Sometimes they accept internship positions, but they don't have a lot of openings for people right after undergrad. MBB, again, it's mostly a campus recruit situation. I think, BCN hires off campus, but most of Bain McKenzie hiring happens on campus or through referrals. So you will not see a lot of posts about it.
So what about the big four?
Big Four, yes, definitely. Big Four, you will see posts about it.
It is through their website or any other
Um,
postings?
So it will be through LinkedIn itself. So you will be able to see some posts from some hiring managers, etc.
True.
If you go to PwC's page and see them, I mean, again, they're also seasonal, right? They're not running all throughout the year. So sometimes they would be there, sometimes they would not be there.
Yeah.
But they do, all I am saying is that they do hire, and you can expect to see some openings over there at least for freshers.
Got it. So careers
Okay.
page is one source of information coupled with hiring post. Like I'll give you an example. The HR of GDI Partners, which is a very good boutique social impact consulting firm, she reached out to me and said that, Sarthak, can you share this job opening that I've circulated on LinkedIn via your own post or via your own LinkedIn page just to increase its reach. So all these HR specifically for early professional and fresher roles do end up posting on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Actually, instead of going to a company page, what you can also do is, for example, if you want to know PwC hiring, in the LinkedIn search tab, just type PwC hiring, you can see all such posts.
True.
So, and if you just sort them by recency, you'll be able to see some people who have recently posted as well. I actually came across a few Bain such posts as well, but I didn't apply back then, so I don't know if they were legit or not.
Got it. Yeah, this is applicable for all companies. Last question, since Prerna couldn't ask it, Prerna, go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Prerna.
Okay, hi Avni. My question is that how does a project look like in EY, like end to end, and what is the team size which is involved in the complete project? Because, like in my current company, I'm involved in research for healthcare related projects, but in my hand, there's no such power to take strategic decisions, and like my manager is more involved in dealing with the client. So that's my question, that how does it go from end to end? Any example would work.
Okay, so typically how we get a project is that we submit a proposal and they accept, we discuss the commercials and it starts. So the proposal has a scope of work that we define at the beginning of the project itself, right? And a typical strategy, or I'll talk about a strategy one because that's more relevant here. So there is a market sizing or market opportunity assessment that we do, right? That talks about current market sizing, future trends, etc., future historical trends and future outlook, etc. That's first thing. Second big part of what we do, and that's market sizing again. We do a lot of research to understand that market, to understand what are all the different things that have changed in the market. So it's a lot of research that goes into it, right? So for example, if we have to I'll tell you a recent thing that we built. Say if you have to build a market for um the city-wise market size for alcohol beverages in India. For this, I need to know number of outlets for alcohol in each city. I need to know how much revenue they generate in each city, and hence I'll come to my market size. So it's a lot of research that you do behind it as well, right? The second thing that we do is say competitive benchmarking. So for the client, how the client is performing on various aspects like operational, and operational is the main part, but a lot of different benchmarks, how are they comparing with competition, and where are the white spaces, etc. Next comes about what are the key white spaces and what really is the roadmap of addressing them. And the fourth biggest module is building that revenue and profitability model, right? So these are the broad overview of modules that we have in a strategy consulting engagement, right? And if you were saying that you're not able to get to that strategic decision taking part, it's not that easy. Okay, first is that you need to, whenever they're asking you to do research, maybe also come up with insights when you're doing that, right? That shows that you're in a position to maybe take things to the next level. And again, right now in a strategy engagements, the partner level people are still getting involved to finally solve a problem. Because imagine that you are working with, say, Paleji ka CEO, right? And he has a problem. It's not like his problem is very basic, right?
Hmm.
Otherwise, he would have solved it himself. The reason why they're hiring consultant is because it's a very nuanced problem, right? And it requires a lot of expertise and a particular line of thinking and a lot of a lot of experience that can help solve it. So don't get boggled down that you're only doing research, but maybe try to move up the line of your thinking to a more strategic level so you can move up it as well.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Avni, for this super insightful conversation and taking up all the questions so patiently. I hope everyone this
No,
was super helpful just to get some insight into how different firms work, hire, and what your day-to-day can look like as a consultant. And thank you so much, Avni, for your time.
no problem.
Awesome. And everyone, thank you so much. You can join the 6 p.m. session in broadly 10 minutes to the other link, which is there on the group. And thank you so much. Thank you,
Okay.
Avni.
Bye. All the best.
Thank you. I'll just stop the recording.